booming or biting the dust. The Bitcoin story is one which has struck the imagination of many investors, bloggers and governments alike. But with more and more countries deciding to take a stance over Bitcoin's legitimacy, is the end in sight? Joining me for a Bitcoin update is Alessio Rastani. Alessio, there has been a huge Bitcoin storm over the past few days and weeks. Russia became the latest to join the regulatory war over the virtual coin, and Apple dropped a top Bitcoin app from the marketplace. Yet at the same time, we hear more people, more retailers are using it in everyday life. So where is the disconnect here?
I'm going to stick to what I said last year, which is it's all going to end up really ugly. Bitcoin has been in a bubble for about almost a year now, and like all bubbles in history, they'll all end up ugly, as the way I see it. The one thing I would agree with Peter Schiff and Alan Greenspan is that the difference between this bubble in Bitcoin and the tulip bubble, or any bubbles actually in history, is that Bitcoin has absolutely no intrinsic value. I mean, I would like for anybody who's listening to this right now to email me or email Dukascopy and say, what exactly is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin? Because it hasn't got any intrinsic value, as I'm sure you'll agree, Monica, because it's a virtual currency. It's hardly a currency that you can use right now for exchange. You know, if I want to buy something with it, there's very few people actually who are willing to accept Bitcoin. And I think we're very far away from being in a situation where Bitcoin will be universally accepted for precisely the problems it's having right now. So what exactly is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin? If someone could prove that to me or to anybody, that would be fantastic. But the thing is, it doesn't have any intrinsic value. At least the tulip bubble of the 17th century, you had a tulip in your hand. At least in the dot-com bubble, you had shares in a dot-com stock. But what exactly do you have when you're buying a Bitcoin? It's incredible to me how anybody who puts their money in Bitcoin thinks that this is going to end up in making them rich, which presumably that's the reason why people are trading it. It's speculation right now. Speculation is driving Bitcoin, not because of any intrinsic value that it has.
On one hand, it's described as a safer medium to use, but on the other, regulators are struggling to pinpoint the most effective way to regulate Bitcoin. There does seem to be a trust issue here, but people put their trust in financial institutions every day, right? So what would you say are the main benefits and what is hindering Bitcoin as opposed to other instruments of choice?
In my view, it depends what you want to use Bitcoin for. So, I mean, I know one of the producers who I deal with for my own business has started using Bitcoin, but that's because his argument is that there are no exchange fees. So there is some attraction, I admit that, there is some attraction for some people to use Bitcoin because there's no exchange fees. But bottom line is, would I want to pay anybody in Bitcoin when I wouldn't know how much my money would be worth tomorrow? So I hope that kind of makes it clear from that point of view. The volatility is simply not attractive to me from an exchange point of view. And the second fact that now we're hearing problems about withdrawals, Mt. Gox saying, there are problems with the whole Bitcoin exchange platform. So from that point of view, it's a no-go for me as far as exchange. As far as an investment, it's even worse. When you buy an investment, it does not meet the criteria for an investment. The criteria for investment is, first of all, it must not be in a bubble, and it must not be something that everybody is getting hyped up about. Professionals never invest their money into something that's something hyped up and extremely volatile and risky. So, from an investment point of view, it also fails as well.
The cryptocurrency hit a low of $659.18 on February the 8th, before rebounding slightly to $679.30, according to BitcoinAverage.com. But some analysts suggest the real reason Bitcoin has been hitting the headlines so often is not because it's weak. Rather, it's because Bitcoin has never been stronger. What do you make of this suggestion?
Well, people can make all kinds of arguments for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not the first market in history to experience these extreme volatile movements. We saw huge volatile movements in the dot-com bubble in the late 20th century. It's funny how people seem to have a very short-term memory when it comes to previous historical bubbles and crashes. One thing I can say is this. Bitcoin right now seems to have gone back to its December lows. It seems to be getting very close now. December lows were about $450. So we're now about $540 since the 20% drop it had because of the bad news from Mt. Gox. So as long as Bitcoin can stay above $450, it could still be a buy opportunity. That's the one thing about bubbles. We never know when they're going to end. We know they're going to end up ending ugly, but we just don't know when they will end. So as long as Bitcoin can stay above the $450 lows, which were made in December, Bitcoin bulls, the buyers, can still jump in and push the price back up. But if we break 450, we close below that, we go lower, then I think that's going to be really, really bad for Bitcoin.
According to some, the lack of a major Bitcoin exchange in the world's largest economy has contributed to this volatility that has become a trademark of the virtual currency. Will the US welcome Bitcoin or something similar, do you think? Or is it just enough that Bitcoin has provided itself as a disruptor in the marketplace?
The thing is, a lot of people who put money in Bitcoin, they view it as a sort of anti-establishment sort of means of, in other words, challenging the status quo, challenging the mainstream currencies and governments. In the past, it used to be gold, but since Bitcoin has come about, some of that's gone to Bitcoin. So yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of folks out there who will stick up for Bitcoin and say, produce all kinds of conspiracy theories that the governments are trying to do their best to make sure Bitcoin will fail, so that the U.S. dollar and other major currencies, so that they ensure their survival. Bottom line is, it doesn't really matter. I really don't buy that. As far as I'm concerned, from the risk perspective, really from any perspective, putting your money into something that has absolutely no intrinsic value, which, as I've mentioned before, very few people are even accepting Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I just don't see it. I just don't see the point of, I'm not probably the best person to be the spokesperson for Bitcoin. I'm sure that there's somebody out there for that, but I just don't see the purpose and the point of it.
Alessio, really great conversation. Thank you so much for your insights. Well, viewers, don't forget you can have your say on our Facebook and Twitter page, so please do get in touch. But for me and for now, it's goodbye.